This morning, one of the members in our private group, a private Facebook group, posted a comment about a relationship that she's in with a man for over 5 years. And when they've talked about taking the relationship to the next level, about being serious, he intimates that he wants some sort of partnership when his children are out of the home and her children out of her home. They don't live together. And so she found herself in a situation where she needed his help and support regarding her daughter having a problem with her car. And she reached out and asked for support from him. And his response was no. In fact, he laughed at her. Now, that's certainly a very unsettling thing for a person to do, to claim. He claims he wants partnership in the future, and yet in the present, he's not very serious about being a partner with her. So I want to explore the strong signs a man has when he's serious about you. And I don't want you to miss out on these. Now, it's interesting. We have to kind of remember that dating is a vetting process. It's a process to determine, is this person right for me? Is this person, how do I get to know this person? That's the dating is a vetting process. Now, the challenge within the vetting process is oftentimes attraction or attachment trumps good judgment. Attraction or attachment trumps good judgment. Or worse, when you feel a sense of attraction or attachment to someone, there might be a nagging issue in the relationship, and many people just hope with time that issue will resolve itself without addressing it. So in the case of what's happened with this person, I think it's hugely important to address this issue, because that doesn't demonstrate partnership on his part. So I want to share with you something I watched on Netflix recently. The show is called The Third Longest Date Ever. And it shares the story of two young people. I think she's 29 and he's 31. And I'll explain in a moment how this relates to our topic today. But they're two people that met just prior to COVID on a dating app, Hinge, okay? And they had a first date, was kind of nice, but he didn't kiss her. And on the second date was kind of nice, and he did kiss her. And for the third date, he said, "I'd like to take you to Costa Rica." Now, it was an impromptu thing that most people would say no to, but she has an adventurous spirit, and she seemed to think he was a good guy. By the way, I want you to know this story has a happy ending, okay? But that's certainly taking a risk on her part. Well, it turns out they flew to Costa Rica days before the world shut down during COVID. And it turns out that they had to spend 78 days together before they came back home. And during this period of time, they went through a lot of calamities together, a lot of frustrations together, not about each other, but there was circumstances where the hotel kicked them out, and then they had to find Airbnbs, and they traveled around Costa Rica finding places to live, and they were dealing with trying to get air travel back. So there was, and he was an influencer, or he is an influencer, and he recorded all this. That's what makes the show. By the way, this came out on Netflix just some weeks ago, so I highly recommend checking it out. Now, during the course of the show, she kept sharing how she was concerned of getting too attached to this person, because what would happen if he wasn't serious when they got home? And certainly he barely knew this person, so he didn't know how serious he was about her. What happened, though, was in this incubator of these 78 days together, they became very attached to one another, but they also had to navigate the challenges of being with another human being. And in that period of time, they got to know each other. Now, there was physical intimacy in this container, so that was certainly a part of it. But by the end of the show, where she was worried that the minute they got home, would he bail on her, it turns out that they actually began forming a relationship, and they eventually moved in together. Okay, why am I talking about this? Because our current dating experience, our current dating experience, is a very long, drawn out version of spending time together. And sadly, many people don't spend a significant enough time together in a short period of time to truly get to know another human being. That's right. Very few people spend enough time very few couples in the dating process spend a significant amount of time together in a relatively short period of time, because these days many people are in relationships where they spend more time on their cell phone texting one another than they do spending face-to-face time together. And for those that know my rhetoric, I say it takes about 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build the first layer of trust. And Jay Shetty says it takes about 40 hours to just begin to get to know someone, and it takes 200 hours of face-to-face time to build a friendship with someone. So when this face-to-face time is spread out over a long, long period of time, in the case I shared with you about the member in the group, I suspect they don't live near each other. They spend concentrated time together, and then they go back to their respective lives. So the time together they spend as a bubble, oftentimes sexually oriented, and not actually beginning the deep roots of trust that sustain a serious relationship. So here are a couple things I want you to pay attention to in the early stages, and then when I'm going to share with you the 3 strong signs he's serious about you. So, I wrote something down though. I want to share something with everyone. Midlife dating requires you have to consider the important things. How long has a person been single, and do they have residue from their past? How long has a person been single, and do they have a residue from their past? What I mean to say is, people that are going through a contentious divorce in the moment haven't resolved. They probably have residue from their past. If someone ended a relationship with someone recently, they have residue from their past. In addition, you have to look at where this person is in their status of their life. Is the ground underneath them solid, or are they going through some level of chaos? And more importantly, you have to recognize that for those of us in midlife, we all come to the table with baggage. Now, I don't like the word baggage. I like the word luggage. But in this luggage, it affects all the moving parts to a healthy, happy relationship. In the case of the couple on the 3rd longest date, they were young. They didn't have children. They didn't have elderly parents. He wasn't dealing with ED. He wasn't dealing with folks in assisted living facilities. He wasn't dealing with menopause, or she wasn't dealing with menopause, although there was a pregnancy scare between the two of them, because she couldn't get her birth control while she had to find birth control while she was in this other country. But my point is, for those of us in midlife, we come to the table with a lot of luggage, and this luggage oftentimes doesn't make it easy to integrate into each other's lives. Excuse me for slurping. So we have to take all these things into consideration. Now, I shared with you in the early stage of dating, you have to pay attention to a couple clues. First and foremost, he's not into you. Okay, after meeting you or after having sex with you, does he become flaky? Now, I know that's very obvious, but this seems to be a habitual narrative we hear in the dating marketplace, that people become very flaky right after meeting you or after having sex with you. This is why I'm a big proponent of vetting another person. Now, vetting is what I teach in my private coaching. By the way, there's a link right here to schedule a discovery call with me. There's a link below as well in the description. My whole coaching program is designed to teach you what questions you should be asking in the early stages of dating based on your personality to determine, is this person compatible with you? Do you share the same values? Are your lifestyles blendable? And more importantly, does he have the emotional maturity to lean into a healthy, happy relationship? Okay, another sign that you have to pay attention to, is he capable of a relationship? Is he capable of a relationship? Now, if I said this earlier, if his life is in chaos, if he's going through a contentious divorce, if he has issues going on at work, if he has issues with his children, the ground underneath him might not be solid enough to lean into a healthy, happy relationship. He might want companionship. He might want connection. He might want sex on an occasional basis, but he's not capable of something deeper, something more solid. You have to pay attention to these signs because he might want you get the pieces of a relationship, but not the totality of some level of partnership in a relationship. And then you have to recognize that this sign is humans have issues. Most humans have unresolved or unhealed childhood wounds and traumas or unresolved adult traumas. That's right. Unresolved, unhealed. See, folks that have never done therapy oftentimes bring their problems from their past relationships. And by the way, when I say therapy, I mean personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. By the way, if you're not familiar, I wrote a book all about that called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. There's a link below. It's the recognition that our baggage isn't just the physical, or luggage, excuse me, isn't just the physical aspects of our lives, it's the emotional aspects of our lives. And sadly, a lot of men and women have traumas from their past, mostly in the area of abandonment, not feeling loved, not feeling good enough. And guess what? Dating and relationships trigger this like nobody's business. I want you to hear this. Dating and relationships trigger this like nobody's business. And so many men are reluctant to get serious with you if they haven't done some level of work in their past to heal. Maybe it's a contentious divorce. Maybe there's issues, childhood wounds that caused him to become an avoidant attachment style. And if you're not familiar with avoidant attachment style, I highly recommend checking out the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. Check out this book. By the way, there's a link to all the books I recommend below. Because your job in the early stages is to be a detective. And then when you're in a relationship, I want you to pay attention to these 3 significant signs that he's serious about you. First and foremost, he makes you a priority. He makes you a priority. I mean, I know that seems rather obvious, but the reality is these days, I see so many women in these casual relationships where a guy makes you a priority at his beck and call. In other words, at his time frame and not your time frame. You know, once I recognized that, here's a picture of Marie and I there. Once I recognized that this was someone very early on that I wanted to explore a relationship with, I made her a priority. I had other priorities in my life. I certainly had my son, I had my business, but at the same time, I made her a priority. See, now here's the tricky part. This is the hardest part of all in the dating process is, when a man is ready to settle down, it's with a woman who is unique to him. She's got something called it factor, something unique that's different. But he has to be in a good place to recognize unique. He's got to be healed from his childhood wounds. And he obviously has to like you enough to want to invest to make you a priority. And I'm going to shoot a video next week about the it factor when a man is ready to settle down. The second strong sign he's serious about you, he tries to actively help you in his life, or your life, excuse me. This is where teamwork is. So coming back to that member in our private group, by the way, there's a link below to join the private group called Midlife Love Mastery. He would have actively tried to help her with her daughter and trying to get a new car. That's what a man who's serious does when he cares about someone. And the third piece, and this is the most important piece, coming back to that couple. By the way, that couple in the show, Longest Third Date Ever, I told you it had a happy ending. Well, it turns out when they got back to New York, where they lived, I shared this briefly, is they dated briefly for a few months and then they moved in together. See, the third strong sign a man is serious about you is he integrates you into his life and he integrates himself into your life. And you're both integrating into each other's lives. See, our current dating process is years and years of dating with very little integration. Now, for some people, it's difficult to do this in the early stages because I recognize you don't want to integrate your life with someone who's emotionally constipated, who's emotionally unavailable, who's avoidant, who is still hung up on their ex, who has issues in his life. Well, this is why I said dating is a vetting process. But ultimately, a strong sign that he's serious about you is the integration into each other's lives. That includes social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in your personal and your professional life. Intimacy is a big part of it, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to, like in this couple's case, moving in together or maybe getting married. See, we here in our midlife, we are dealing with a popular, by the way, midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. And look, ladies, I wish I could be there for you on a first date. I'd be like your big brother. I'd have the shotgun pointed out to the guy's face and saying, what's your intentions with my sister? See, a lot of men in midlife are absolutely gun shy. They are gun shy. They've gone through a contentious divorce. They have tons of unresolved issues in their life. And they want that temporary companionship, that temporary connection, that temporary sex with you. I mean, the occasional companionship, occasional connection, occasional sex, without any capacity to go deeper. You have to be your own detective, because remember what I said earlier on in this video? Dating is a vetting process, and attraction and attachment can trump good judgment. And one of the things I've noticed with every woman who's gone through a breakup always says the same thing. I went against my better judgment. See, you have to pay attention to these things. And if nothing else, when an issue comes up, is work on it in the present versus hoping something will change in the future. Because guess what? Most people who are in a happy, healthy relationship, they didn't have problems. It integrated themselves just like I've talked about here. It's those ones that are in drawn out, casual relationships that have the greatest frustration. And if you need some help and support with a relationship you're in, schedule a discovery call with me. That's my area of expertise to evaluate the relationship on your behalf to determine, is he serious about you? Or is this just going to be one of those relationships where in the future, he's going to be somebody I used to know? All right, is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know. Please post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. As always, if you find value in my content, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Join my group called Midlife Love Master, or schedule a discovery call, and it's all in the links below. All right. Since this is my live stream, we're going to take questions right now. If you have a question for me, write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there. He's my son who passed away almost 5 years ago. In fact, his 24th birthday would be 3 days from now. And in his honor, I donate to a variety of causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, and now the Seeds of Love, which is helping children in Colombia who have been abandoned by their parents because they have a terminal disease. And I'm beginning to donate to them as well. All right, so if you have a question, post the question, and then we'll go from there. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching the replay, please purchase a super thanks as well. All right, Melissa has a question. What are some good vetting questions to ask someone new? Okay, while I teach this in my private coaching right here, one of the questions I invite you all to ask is, what does commitment look like for you, and what does a relationship look like for you? See, when I met Marie, I was very crystal clear. Even though we had distance involved, I wanted to relate. By the way, hold on. I want to share with you this in a second, but I need to turn on the my fan here. So bear with me 1 second. It's just a little bit cool, warm up here. Okay, so I was crystal clear. I wanted a day in, day out relationship, where we did social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy. Okay. I wanted a day in, day out relationship, and she lives 1,700 miles away. So I was reluctant to explore this relationship. It wasn't until I asked the deeper questions, when she had shared with me that she grew up in Los Angeles. She had 2 children who live in Los Angeles. She has good friends who live in Los Angeles. In fact, her best friend lives about an hour from where we currently live. So I knew, and she was very serious about moving out of the winter weather in Chicago. She didn't like the winters in Chicago. So there was enough evidence for me to explore this relationship, because it seemed like she could fit into my life. In fact, in our first 100 days together, we spent 45 days out of 100 days together. We were in this incubator of getting to know one another. I want you to think about this. I know couples who have been together for 2 years and they haven't physically spent 45 days together. Think about that for a second. 2 years and they haven't even spent 45 days together. They get together every other week for 1 or 2 days. So every other week is basically, in the course of 2 years, could be 48 days together, give or take. I'm just doing rough math here. So ask the questions. What does commitment look like for you, and what does a relationship look like for you? And if he says, oh, I want a relationship, just remember, what does that look like for you? What does it look like on the calendar? What does Monday look like? What does Tuesday look like? And if he says, well, I can't think that far, well, then what do you want? Start asking the deeper questions early on. If he hasn't contemplated, then share with him what you want. I want a relationship where we see each other on Tuesday and on Thursday and on Saturday and then on Sunday. And then the following week, it could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. How you want to spend time together. And if he balks at that, that's a man who doesn't have a plan of being in a serious relationship. He just hopes that somehow magic fairy dust will change this. Here's the thing. There's 3 types of men out there. There's the users, the spenders, and the growers. The users are people in it for the short run. They're roughly about 20% of the population. The spenders are those that want occasional companionship, occasional sex, occasional connection, but it's occasional. They'll just spend time with you for their benefit. And then there's the growers and the builders, the men that I'm talking about. They want to integrate into your life. They want to help you in your life, and they're going to make you a priority. That's the grower and the builders. That's about 20% of the population. And roughly 60% of the population is rather dysfunctional, and they are only capable of being what I call a spender. All right, let's keep going here. Thanks for that question, Melissa. Ron says, hi, Jonathan, what about when I haven't met the guy in person, but he's planning to visit me? So if we meet, we will have to wait if we both want to commit. Well, certainly, folks, I want you to check this out on, I think it's on Discovery Plus or Hulu. It's called Love Prison. It's about people who have spent 6 months to 2 years talking to one another whom never met. And when they meet, it turns out to be a disaster. Okay, folks, it's not real until it's real. It's not real until it's real. And it's not real until you're breaking bread together on a regular basis. And as I said, I'm a big proponent of the incubator. In other words, spending a lot of time together in a short period of time. Now, is that a guarantee? No. Could you get attached to someone? Yes, but wouldn't you rather know in 60 days if this is the wrong person than 2 years? I know, just like this woman who's in a relationship in our group, 5 years with this man. Let me tell you, his colors aren't going to change, okay? His personality is fixed. Now, could he change his behaviors? Maybe, but I highly doubt it. So if he's not willing to help her daughter, you know, this is someone where they get together, I'm assuming on a regular basis, they have sex together, and he's not willing to be a team in her life, that's a person that will end the relationship at some point. Because right now it's easy. He gets the occasional companionship, the occasional sex, the occasional connection. So anyway, I'm just babbling here. Let's go on to the next one. Zen Gal. Hey, happy to have you in the house. Could you give an example of caught up with his ex? Paraphrase from what you said. Okay. So some men and women who are divorced or have an ex relationship are caught up with them, particularly in divorce. Usually if there's maybe ongoing alimony or child support, if there's a contentiousness to the relationship, they're caught up with this person. Basically, you're not just getting him in a relationship, you're getting all the luggage that goes with that. That's one of the challenges for midlife, okay? Now, maybe somebody who's ended a significant relationship might still have feelings for that other person. See, this is why you need to have time apart you have to be single for 6 months to a year after the ending of a significant relationship, because you can find people who are both men and women alike that are very caught up with their ex. In other words, they haven't healed, they haven't let go, they still have traumas, they still have judgments, they still have bitterness, they still have jadedness. And so they're not coming to the relationship very clean. That's what I was talking about in that case, Zengal. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much. Pai Mei says, I plan to sign up for Millionaire Match. Yay, Marie and I met on Marie believes she met me on Millionaire Match 2 years earlier, but I just don't have a memory of it. Could have been I just saw Chicago. Oh, I wasn't a paying member at that time. That's the reason why. Turn 41, looking for a gentleman ready for commitment, relationship leading to marriage. Anything to be mindful about your experience of Millionaire Match. Okay, folks, Millionaire Match is a site for people supposedly who are worth over $100,000. That's the criteria, and they do actually verify this. So one of the things is if they have a verification, they've actually had to submit financial records of some sort to prove their net worth, but a Millionaire Match only has to be worth $100,000. Okay, so that's one benefit. I found that most people on that site tended to be more professionals, okay? What I mean by professionals, they were doctors, they were lawyers, they were accountants, that sort of thing. The women were directors of operations of places or had significant, some assets to them. Now, that wasn't always the case. There are a lot of scam artists on these sites as well. But I personally happened to meet some really nice women from that site. I really did. Just like I met some very nice women on Match.com, where I had most of my frustrations were on the dating apps, the swipe apps, where you just swipe and swipe and swipe and swipe and swipe. And there wasn't a lot of robustness to the profile. There wasn't any essays written in the profile. There wasn't a lot of pictures. Those were some of the frustrations I had with the swipe apps, okay? Now with Millionaire Match, you can get flaky people. You can get men who are alpha male, who are the user types. You can get a lot of user types. You can get a lot of spender types. But I found that both the men and women seem to have, you know, the one common denominator that I sensed from that site is most of them had their financial act together. Oh, and plus the cost of being on the site. It was $40, $50, $60 a month. So at least there was a significant investment into the site. Whereas there's no investment in Hinge, Bumble, that sort of thing. You might boost your account every now and again. But that was one of the differences, is it costs money. By the way, I've seen women say, I don't want to do those sites because it costs too much money. If you're telling me $50 a month for a year isn't worth investing into a relationship, then just remember, people in the bottom of the barrel, and no disrespect to that, but people who aren't serious like free. People who are serious will invest. That's the big difference I saw. So thank you so much for that question. Jennifer says, why do men say, get me off the dating sites and app? I've seen some men say, please save me. Why is this unresolved mother drama? You know, I remember in the beginning stages, I would say something like that. I see that as a bit tongue in cheek, you know, get me off the sites. Let's face it. We are in a really messed up dating marketplace. It is very messed up. Because of the dating apps, it's very messed up. The days of organically meeting somebody who was in your tribe doesn't exist anymore. You know, think about this. If we go back 100+ years ago, or even 50 years ago, you were most likely to mate with somebody who shared your same political views, who shared your same religion, maybe shared your cultural background. Maybe knew people in your life, you know, like they knew your family, they knew your friends. There was no degrees of separation. You knew each other. Maybe you knew each other, and maybe you knew one person that knows you, and vice versa. See, today we're meeting total strangers, and we're meeting total strangers. It's scary. What did your parents tell you growing up? Stranger danger. Remember, beware of strangers. Well, so we already have this built-in fear about a stranger, and God forbid there's a little bit of attraction that makes you attached to someone you barely know. This is why when I created my private coaching program, by the way, I got to share something with you. I get calls every week, every other week from clients. Jonathan, I met a great guy. Jonathan, I met a great guy. Jonathan, I met a great guy. And they know the difference because they've learned how to be their own matchmaker. See, here's the thing. If you hired a matchmaker, their job is to do all the vetting for you. So then when you meet, you can just approach the relationship from fun and chemistry. Well, the problem is we approach relationships from romance as being the leading cause of entering into a relationship instead of compatibility. Do we share the same values? Are our lifestyles blendable? And more importantly, is this person emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship? And the reality is after 40, all of our childhood wounds and traumas bubble to the surface, and worse. If we've had one failed relationship after another, it wears on our emotional well-being. By the way, I think you can tell I'm hyper. It's because I'm here to scream at the top of my lungs, you know, to invite you all to do something a little bit different. All right. I hope I answered your question. But you know what? I would say I wanted someone to get me off the apps because I'm tired of the dating apps. Does that mean mother issues? It could be, but not always. All right, let's keep going. Bella writes, question. Having asked the early questions, used exactly what does a relationship look like to you, got the right answers 4 months down the line, there's no effort to introduce me or more time. Okay, so here's where it's tricky, Bella. Are you spending a lot of regular time together? Does he make you a priority? Has he tried? Well, it sounds like he isn't integrating you into his life. So my guess is you're not seeing each other 3 or 4 times a week, okay? Now, this depends on how far apart the two of you lived. I want everyone to write this down. Proximity creates continuity. Proximity creates continuity. Continuity means continuous. I want you to think of roots to a tree. Okay? When roots keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, it makes that tree stronger. So when there is a wind, the tree isn't going to blow over, okay? And the closer two people to live together and the more frequently they spend time together, the more continuity is built. So if in 4 months he's not making effort to integrate you, it sounds like he wants to take it slow, okay? Men who want to take it slow basically most likely have some unresolved trauma in their past relationships, or some abandonment, or some avoidant aspects of their life, avoidant emotional aspects of their life, that makes it difficult for them to lean into a healthy, happy relationship. This is why, folks, in my private coaching, I talk about radical honesty, laying your cards on the table, and the rules of engagement, which is establishing your standards early on. And it sounds like you did establish your standards, but he's not meeting them. So it sounds like he's not living up. If he agreed to it and he's not living up to it, his actions hasn't matched his words. That's my speculation on that one. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Let's keep going here. Judy writes, what's the difference between active avoidant and passive avoidant? You know, I'm not the expert on avoidant. Okay. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not the expert on avoidant. So I don't know the significant differences between the two. What I do know is avoidant men and women desperately want to feel loved. They desperately want to feel loved. They fear, though, that they're not going to be loved, whether it's active or passive. Okay. They fear they're not going to be loved. And so their actions are like there's this wall from them to be able to receive love for another human being. And where this needs some address is through intimacy, emotional intimacy. Folks, if you're not from, by the way, there's a link below to get a copy of this book, Emotional Intimacy by Robert Masters. I invite you all to read this book so you get a better sense of what intimacy is. Into me you see. Into me you see. So what needs to happen in this relationship is deeper conversations about your past, about your present, and about your future, having deeper conversations. The focus of the relationship should be about building intimacy, and intimacy happens through vulnerability, authenticity, and transparency. Now, many of you are afraid to be vulnerable because you're afraid you're going to scare a guy away. And let me tell you something. I wrote this in my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? Chapter 1, speak your truth. That's being vulnerable. Just do it in a kind way, non-confrontational way. And chapter 9 is if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So be vulnerable, be authentic, and transparent means if it's material to the relationship, then you should be speaking up. If it can affect the relationship, both parties should be speaking up. Okay, Judy, I hope that helps. Oh, Catherine goes on to say, I like these questions to discern if a man is capable of making you his priority and integrating you into his life early in the relationship. I agree, Catherine. Thank you so much. Dee Dee writes, question, is it crazy to think I can get back with a guy who broke up with me 31 years ago? I recently got in touch with him and he says he misses me. Okay. This is a very common syndrome that happens. This actually came about when Facebook was invented. A lot of people connected with their people from their childhood. Okay. And in that experience, in these experiences, they have reconnected with people in their past. Now, is it crazy to think? No, it's not crazy to think you can. Now, is this person an emotional grown-up? You don't know. Does this person come to the table with a lot of luggage? You don't know. Can you integrate your lives? You don't know. Now, you can certainly start asking the questions if you share the same values, but ultimately, Dee Dee, my question for you is how far apart do you two live? Because many of you will get attached to a long distance relationship. You'll spend years and years and years developing some sort of cyber connection with this person. But let's get real, folks. It's not real until it's real. With Marie, it was long distance. I wasn't willing to invest in this relationship unless there was a commitment to spend a significant amount of time together over the course of 6 months. And what we did is we had the resources to see, we had the time and the resources, and our lifestyles were compatible enough to make it work. That's what makes it unique. Many of you don't have the resources, the lifestyle, or the flexibility to make distance relationships work. And we see that probably 50% of all relationships in midlife, for the most part, these days are cyber relationships, they're casual relationships, they're distance relationships. All right, I think you get the gist of where I'm going. Rihanna says, question. Hi, Jonathan. I'm in a communication with a guy, knew him online dating site. Okay, that's not a question, Rihanna. So if you have a question, tell me what the question is, okay? I don't know. I'm in a communication with a guy. I knew him in the online dating site. Okay, that's good. But give me more. I need more. By the way, Gigi says, 100,000 net worth makes a millionaire. Kind of misleading. You know, I thought the same thing too. I thought that was kind of strange, but that's their verification process. By the way, do you realize that the 80% of Americans in the United States don't have more than 3 months savings in the bank? And I'd say 80% of Americans don't have a net worth of about 100. By the way, they might have changed it to 250,000. I don't know if they've made a change. I remember when I first saw it, it was 100,000. So please forgive me. But 80% of Americans don't have that net worth. So 100,000 is actually something that is in the top 20% versus the bottom, you know, the bottom 80%. Anyways, I hope that helps, Gigi. All right. CC says, I paid for Match 2 years, met a few good guys, but none wanted a relationship. Well, I'm going to assume that you didn't date thousands of men, okay? Because to need a good sampling, you need to have at least gone out with 100 men. And if 100 men, okay, so here's the thing. If 100 men didn't want to, 1, 2, or 3 didn't want a relationship, it's either you didn't date enough people, or you have to recognize that you might have rejected a lot of good men. Do you realize that women reject a lot of good men? Because he wasn't good looking enough, he wasn't tall enough, he wasn't this enough. There are a lot of good men on these dating sites that get rejected because they don't meet some sort of criteria for women. So I'm saying, Cece, there's a good chance you might have rejected some good guys out there. That's possible. Anyway, it's my 2 cents on that. Let's keep going. Okay, looks like Rihanna has asked that question. I met a guy on a dating site. We don't communicate constantly. He did tell me he was going to visit me for a week. I'm from the Philippines and he's from the US. Okay, again, fantasy-based relationships. Look at, folks, I am guilty of talking to women, other parts of the world, because it was just, it was nice to not feel alone. It was nice to connect with someone, okay? I never did international. Actually, I did once international, briefly. But you know what? A man who's serious about a relationship, he probably wants to be with someone he can see regularly. He doesn't invest in someone who's overseas. Now, some men are desperate. They'll do that. I'm not suggesting he is, but I'm just going to say that. The problem with investing time with someone you can't physically meet in a very short period of time is you could be investing a lot of your emotional well-being to a person who is either incapable or not serious. And just remember, it's not real until you've spent 100 hours of face-to-face time. It's not real. Remember I talked about, folks, you have to watch this show, Love Prison. Google it. It came out 8 years ago. This is a show where people had been communicating for 6 months to 2 years, and they finally met and spent 1 week together and found that they couldn't stand each other. See, it's not real until, just like this show, the longest third date ever, when they were in this incubator, it was either make or break. So what's your question? He doesn't communicate constantly. I would not put my eggs in that basket. That's my 2 cents on that, Rihanna. So thank you. By the way, Leaf wrote down for all of us, proximity creates continuity. Thank you so much. All right, let's keep going here. Oh, Zengal goes on to say, I'm listening to your book on Audible. Thank you so much, Zengal. I appreciate that. All right. Paime writes, question. Do you advise dating websites for ladies who are virgins? If yes, how to approach that? There are clear boundaries on that. Committed relationships leading up to marriage. So, you know, I don't want to single out somebody who is a virgin versus someone who's had sex with 100 guys, and whatever that number is. Okay, I'm just being tongue in cheek here. I think you have to first recognize who you are and what you want. Okay, who are you and what you want? And do you clearly express what you want? Folks, if you want marriage, that should be the first sentence on your dating app. I'd like to either live with someone or get married. In fact, my dating site said that, or dating profile said that. Everyone, hold on for 1 second. I want to find what I wrote on my dating profile for everyone. I hope you can hear me. But I want to share with you something that I invite you all to do. So I hope I have a copy of it here. Okay, this was my dating profile. It said, let me start with the following. I would like to get remarried or at least live together. And I'm seeking a woman who feels the same. For me, this isn't about growing old with someone. I want to grow in life and in love with a special woman. Plus, I promise my next partner emotional maturity, lots of great sex, chocolate massages, flirty texts, poetry. I've been failing on the poetry part. Travel and tacos on Tuesday, which Marie and I do. So the reason why I'm on a dating site, as well as a few others, is that I'm using any tool to connect with my soulmate and life partner. Where did I say it? So you won't have to be concerned if I'm going to waste your time, and I hope you're the same. Is that a deal? And just so you know, in my world, commitment and partnership are what I want, and the last thing I seek is something casual. Do you feel the same way? So this was just, and by the way, my profile was 1,000 words or characters or whatever. No, not 1,000 words. It was 1,000 or 1,500 characters. In fact, what I appreciate most about Marie's profile is that she said that she was looking for a deeply connected relationship. And that was words that triggered what I was seeking. But I started with the very beginning. I want to remarry or at least live with someone. Folks, establish what you want. Paime, establish what you want very beginning. And this way you'll be hopefully weeding out men that are just the looky-loos. Thanks so much for that question. All right. LD123 says, this is what's hard for me, how to bring up intentions early with someone. As a woman without leading the conversation or relationship, I just feel like I'm starting to lead when I bring this up. So we could look at this from a different perspective. You're leading by example, okay? What I mean to say is you're simply expressing your standard. You're not leading, you're expressing your standard, and then you're investing by expressing your standard, and then you're observing. Invest and observe, invest and observe, invest and observe. Okay? By you're not leading, you're demonstrating your standard, and then you're observing how they respond. Do you see the difference with that, LD? It's a big difference. Ladies, many of you have Scotch tape over your mouth. You guys are so afraid to ask. One of the things I appreciate most about Marie is she is unafraid to speak her mind. Now, I don't mean that she blurts out things without a filter, and she's certainly very diplomatic, okay? But she speaks her mind like a diplomat, very diplomatic. I think, and another way of calling diplomatic, actually what I appreciate most is she does it with a lot of grace. This requires a practice. This is why I invite you all to check out Insight Seminars, okay? Google Insight Seminars. You can do the online training, but it's a great place to be able to learn to Speak from the inside out. It's not a dating or relationship group or organization. It's about learning who you are as a person and speaking from the inside out. Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. Okay, Catherine. Hey, Catherine's in the house. In your own life, you have found any specific questions or methods to encourage someone to become more valuable and transparent with you? You know, I'm going to piggyback what I was just sharing. Expressing your wants in a relationship is an invitation to another person. Expressing your wants. How they respond gives you insight into their character. Do you express what you want? And so, and recognize that we humans need to evolve. And in a relationship, you know, I'm learning, even in my own relationship with Marie, we're going through some growing pains. That's a natural evolution of a relationship. We're going through our own growing pains. I'm learning to trust more. She's learning to trust more. You know, there's the base. Remember I said it takes about 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build the first layer of trust? Well, there's probably a dozen layers to build, dozen layers of relationship that happens over time that makes you feel truly safe. I heard that it takes about 3 years to if 3 years of a co-creative relationship to feel truly safe with another person. You know, the first year is I did a post. Oh, by the way, here, I did a post in the group, or I did a survey in YouTube. Bear with me one second. I want to find this survey. I said, bear with me. How long should you be dating before a serious commitment is declared? 11% said 1 to 2 months. 51% said 3 to 6 months. 14% said 7 to 12 months. 12% after 1 year, and 13% before having sex. See, here's the thing about a serious commitment. What I mean is a declaration that you're both committed to exploring this beyond the surface. You're both committed to exploring the relationship after, you know, from a serious perspective, from a long-term perspective, okay? Now, I'm a big proponent of doing that sooner rather than later. Within the first 1 to 3 months is to become serious about exploring a relationship together, okay? It takes about 12 months, spending 4 seasons together, to really get a base sense of someone if you're spending regular time together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends. And it takes about 3 years to fully trust a person that this person has your best interest at heart, okay? And so this is about a time it takes, okay? This is why choosing wisely in the beginning makes a big difference, and paying attention to the signs. Is he serious, or is he incapable? Is he flaky, or is he just not that into you? Those signs, just to repeat again, he makes you a priority early on. He actively tries to help you in his life, and then he integrates you into his life, and he's integrating in your life. Those are great signs he's serious about you. Folks, I scream at the top of my lungs because I want to encourage everyone to do things a different way. Don't allow attraction and attachment to be the basis of entering into a relationship. Do it from good judgment and recognizing that if there's a nagging issue, it must be addressed. And many of you find yourself, you know, experiencing these virtual relationships, cyber relationships, casual relationships, and then you're wondering, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm here to scream at the top of my lungs, stop it! All right, I just want to give props to, bear with me one second. I want to give props to, looks like, Paime says, teşekkür ederim. That means thank you in Turkish. Çok teşekkür. It means much thank you in Turkish. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. For those who know my heritage, my parents are both parents are from Istanbul, Turkey. Although I barely speak Turkish, I know enough to be dangerous, but I really appreciate doing that in my parents' tongue. So thank you so much. All right. Leaf is in the house. She says, we're coming up on an hour. Everyone, please post your question as soon as possible if you'd like an answer from Jonathan. Leaf, you know me so well. Actually, this is where I'm getting ready to wrap up. Did this have value for you, this conversation? Please let me know. If you have something to share, please post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Also, if you found value in this, please hit the like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. In the show notes, there's links to schedule a discovery call with me, to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery, to get my dating vows, to follow me on Instagram, and check out Naked Discovery, Naked Divorce. And also you can get my free gift as well. Oh, and Sunshine says, don't give the milk away for free. Wait until he buys. All right. I appreciate that. Everyone, I'm going to be wrapping up this video as I always do. First off, giving myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. Hey, Catherine, thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Elena, thank you, Jonathan, for another great conversation. Leaf is in the house. Sunshine, Gigi, Pai May, Judy, L. McDonald, VR, LD123, our Facebook group, Dee Dee, everyone, Zen Gal, Melissa, everyone, thank you so much. Wishing you a fab Sunday. Be well. Take care. Bye now. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.